It's not yet graphical. Peter here is trying to make that graphical. But you have the various attributes, the various fields of that data element. And you have also the finders which are defined for that data element and possible projections and commands for the children, the data children which are attached to it, etc. So these are the models. So here you browse through what you see here as the mirrors or the models. We browse through the models. Okay. Now, the next thing are, of course, we need to instantiate the application. And so, if we instantiate this application, we look at the instantiations of applications. And we see, for instance, here, 3 instantiations of EU-RELT. You see, it's a little bit visible. Yes, a basic one, a model, a simple one, and a custom one with various models. And here you see the same model, but different craft in different settings. So what you specify here is a further specification of the other dimensions. If you look here, for instance, you see this is the application and it's the model. And this application consists of these components, and these components consist of a number of data elements, task elements, flow elements, etc. Yes, so this is the model. What you then see here, yes, is the expanded version. This is the skeletons. That's the version of the expanders. The version of the skeletons to make the elements separating and encapsulating the various concerns. So here you click on it and you see the following artifact types, the following class templates that are used to create the skeleton. So here we have the various class templates that will be used to create the skeletons. For the task element, you have here the various class templates that will be used to create the skeletons. You have for the flow the same thing, all the skeletons classes that will be used to create the elements. So here you click through to the models, the mirrors, the components with the data elements, the task elements. Here you click through to the skeletons, to the various class templates that will be used to generate the elements. And here you specify various settings for the frameworks of the utilities. Here you say you use Bootstrap as a styler, you use Knockout as a view controller, and remote method invocation for the remote thing. So here you specify the frameworks for the presentation layer. And here you specify the frameworks for the logic tier, the data tier. Here you say you use SQLDB and Hibernate and EJB and RMI and Jonas. So here you specify the various things. Okay? And here you have various options that I can show you. For instance, in the business logic, you can default of a certain company, standard Progress, Postgres, standard HSQL, etc. Okay? So here you specify that, and then you specify where you deploy it, where you will deploy the application. Yes? And which version of the application server and which deployment. So you specify the models, the mirrors, you specify the skeletons, you specify the technology frameworks you use for the cross-cutting concern, and you specify where to deploy it. Okay? So, what have you see for this basic application? You saw the specification of the models, the data entities, the flow and the task entities, the fields, the attributes, the specification of the skeletons, the specification of the frameworks, will start it up and you will see it later. We, on the other hand, yes, go and look at another application. And we say, for instance, we also have here, you ask something you want to know. We also have here an application, for instance, yes, to follow up on the process of mastertheses. You know, mastertheses, students have to work on that, they have to work during the year, they have to go to their supervisor, talk to their supervisor, come back, and so we track that, whether they did some decent work in the first part, in the second part, etc. Now I see that the first application, the EU rent, has come up, and so I can now log in, but the thing doesn't do much because there's no data in it. Okay? So this is the application generated, and from which I know it is an application with the models being described there, with the settings, with the skeletons, and with specific custom code or crafting, and that you can see in the custom base. This is the code base repository where the custom code version is stored, where the crafting is stored. Okay? And so that's this application. Okay. But like I said, there is not much data in it, so I can go back and look, for instance, at another application and say, well, this is the application to manage the process being done with various sequences and activities for mastertheses. Okay. So I can also ask the prior agent to deploy that one, because this is deployed on another port or install base. So I can also ask him to deploy this application. And while he's doing that, we can take a look at the model. And you see that here you have the various data elements where you define the master description, and the various attributes are the promoter or supervisor, it's in Dutch, the first process evaluation, the second process evaluation, etc. And you also have tasks elements, and you have first tasks to notify the promoter in case the first part has been concluded, to make a report, etc. So these is the model, and you also have some flows that when evaluation has been done, a report is automatically being made and a report is sent and transmitted to the promoter. Okay, so here we saw the model of that one, and that one is being deployed now as well. Is it finished yet? No, it's still like that. Still working. Okay, but you see the model here. We still take a look at some other model. Oh, he's done. So this one has now been deployed as well. So, and I can, log in. And here I have some more theses in. So I have quite a lot of things. And this one even has some kind of an access control, so if I log out and I would log in as a specific individual for which I should not have a password, but I do have it, I only see the master thesis for this individual. Yes. Okay. And if I log in again. So here I can chart the various dimensions of variability, of evolvability, and then deploy the applications. Okay. Now, for both, for these applications, I can also say, for instance, look, I want to look at the structure and of the codes. So, once again, I say I come here. And I say, look, I want to dig into the code, because the prime gradient allows you to look at the variability, the dimensions, the models, the mirrors, the graphics, the frameworks, the skeletons, and then he generates, but you can look at everything. So you can also look at the source code. Please interrupt me if something isn't clear or sharp, because I'm looking at my PC all the time.
I just have a question. If I wanted to style the application, because both of the apps look the same, so if I want to style them, like add some CSS or whatever, there'll be the custom coding, or where would that fall into?
That would be here. So you would have, for instance, you would, for instance, here say, yeah, it's in the settings in the presentations here. Wait, I'll show you. So you have in the application. So you have to select another style. So here you select the bootstrap, which we standard use, the skeletal layout, which we use, the layout that the Dutch tax offices use, and etc. So you can specify it there at that level.
And conceptually, this falls into like the dimension of the frameworks, or where does it stand in, or is it outside of that scope?
It's a little bit, so we put it in the dimension of the model, because it's not really the framework, it's the type of styling, the type of interface. So it's not really the framework, because you can have the same style in different frameworks, basically.
Okay.
So that's why it's here at the application level. Okay, so these are the various dimensions. So please ask them, because I know this is very difficult to get the attention on the screen, and I'm looking at my screen. But you can also look in more detail to the various classes. So for instance, you have here the data elements, the task elements, flow element, but you also have instances. And through here, I can take a look